So yesterday we got the biggest update slash non-update in the ongoing, painful, and quite frankly absurd and dragged out James Harden saga with the Philadelphia 76ers. Adrian Wojnarowski reported yesterday that the Sixers have ended trade talks for James Harden, and I'm saying that in air quotes because they are probably not really done. This is just posturing, but whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's basically the same thing that has been happening for the last 2 months, or I guess nothing's really been happening, and that's the point of this. This whole thing is just, I just want it to end. I want to have a fresh look at this team, and you guys who have been subscribed to my channel know that I was for the James Harden-Ben Simmons trade. I thought it was a win, but after failure and epically flaming out in the second round last year, both James Harden and, more importantly, Joel Embiid, and now James Harden requesting this trade, I'm just over it. And by the way, I'm not saying trade James Harden for just anything. This is the right move to do, but as a fan, it is just fucking annoying that this keeps dragging out, and the only reason it's being dragged out is because one player is still disillusioned with where he is at in this stage in his career. I think James Harden, for as much, and again, one of my very first videos on this channel was me talking about 2017-2018 James Harden, and James Harden's one of my favorite players ever, but this has gotten to the point of delusion, and I guess Harden's sticking point, or it's been reported over and over again that the lack of a long-term contract extension, or what he felt was ghosting by Daryl Morey leading up to free agency and stuff like that, has rubbed him the wrong way, doesn't want to play for Philadelphia again. And I just love that, you know, he's on an expiring contract and has demanded a trade. And not only that, by the way, he opted into the contract and then demanded a trade to one team when he could have just not opted into the player option of his contract and just signed with the Clippers outright. But James Harden wanted his money. He wanted to have two things at once, and he just doesn't realize that, one, the trade market probably isn't favorable to him, definitely hasn't been favorable to him. And also, I don't understand why he's mad that the Sixers weren't going to give him a long-term extension. He's been on 3 teams the last 4 years. 2 of them he's been clearly out of shape for. There's now been a repeated history of him, when he doesn't get his way, he pouts, he shows up out of shape, he doesn't try on the basketball court, and it's really apparent, but he wants to win a championship. He's so dedicated, so he says, and so does his party say. But that's not the case, and he's not a serious person. Yeah, I'm sure that he probably expected a long-term deal after taking a pay cut last year so the Sixers could sign, you know, Daniel House and PJ Tucker. But even if there was that type of under-the-table handshake agreement in place, Harden kind of went back on that when he started leaking all the way back in December that he was going to go to the Rockets, and what was a clear play to use them as leverage so the Sixers can give him a bigger contract, or the contract that he wanted. So Harden started this whole thing, so I don't want to hear it from him about him being upset that the Sixers never offered him a long-term deal or didn't get any signals that the Sixers were interested in him returning to the team long-term. Harden started all this shit with the Houston shit back in December, and obviously, especially after they hired Ime Udoka, the Rockets just didn't want any part of the Harden experience again. And Harden realized that he was out of options, so he decided to opt in and then force his way to a trade to a team that is, one, a contender, and also doesn't want to give up the type of package that Daryl Morey wants. So now we're in the waiting game again. I think I could speak for myself and every other Sixer fan that they wanted something different this year. at least at the very least, for me personally, I would have loved to see a Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey led team with a bunch of wings surrounding them, whether you get 2 or 3 of the Clippers rotation wings or expiring contracts or whatever, but just something different, because now the Sixers have a creative coach, a coach that is better than Doc Rivers. They finally have a guard that's dynamic for the first time in I don't know how long. And they still have Joel Embiid, and I'll do a separate video on 1, the Sixers, and 2, the big fella later, because, now the sting of, the second round flame out, the game 6 choke, and the game 7 choke, I'm kind of more relaxed and have a clear head, but I really wanted to see a different team this year. Doesn't look like we'll get that for at least now. I don't believe trade talks are really done or the Sixers actually took Harden off the market, but I really wanted to see a different type of Sixers team, one that finally has athleticism around Embiid and Maxey, or insert second best player here, but I really wanted to see it. I also just love how immediately after all these type of reports come out, it's always from Harden's camp right after, where they basically say, yeah, he's not going to show up to training camp, or it'll be a really difficult and awkward experience. So he's basically just coming in planning to sabotage shit if he doesn't get his way. Like, what type of team will trade for that? But I digress. Harden's 34. His game is clearly declining. He's not going to change either. He's not going to continue to... he took a few more catch and shoot threes last year than he usually did for his career, and people like myself were just like, oh my God, he's actually committing to playing off the ball, even though he really didn't. But yeah, I really don't have much else to say. This is a non-update update, and yeah, I guess I'll talk about the Sixers and Joel Embiid later in a different video, like I said, but there's nothing new here. I just want this shit to be over, and I want to go into the season with a team that, is kind of interesting, and a team led by Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and insert wing players around him here. That's something I want to personally see. I don't think it's a contender, but it's something different and gives you some extra variables that, you can put yourself in a position to be lucky and have a few breaks your way. I don't know, but I know as it stands right now, James Harden still being on this team makes the Sixers the least interesting team in the league, because we all know what the end result is going to be.